What's up, guys, and welcome to another episode of Game Script. We got the Minnesota Vikings versus the Detroit Lions on Sunday Night Football, a game with huge playoff implications. They're fighting for the number one overall seed in the NFC, and it's going to be likely a shootout based on what the total is telling us, and it's going to be tough to jam in the studs, but there are some ways that we can do it, and I'm going to get into it right after this. What's up, guys? Simon Edwards at Pumacom here with Heat Seeker Sports, and you're watching Game Script. And we're looking at, like I said at the top, the Detroit Lions versus the Minnesota Vikings. They're playing in Detroit. It's a 56.5 point total, one of the highest, if not the highest on the year. And we got Detroit as 2.5 point favorites at home in this one. They're playing in a dome. We don't have any weather concerns. It's going to be set up for a shootout, a couple pass funnel defenses facing off against each other. The Minnesota Vikings have only allowed 17.6 DraftKings points a game to the running back position, and the Detroit Lions have only allowed 18.4 DraftKings points a game to the running back position. So both of these teams are pass funnel defenses playing in a dome, and that is going to lend itself to being a shootout in this one. And I'm going to get into it in a minute. Make sure to hit that like button. Get me to 30 likes so we can put out my favorite picks a little bit closer to lock. Make sure to subscribe to the channel. I'm looking for 1,600 subscribers. I need about 90 or so to get there. So if you guys can help me get there, hopefully by the end of the week, I'd definitely appreciate that. And like I said, this is going to be a crazy matchup between two high-powered offenses. They're fighting for first place in not only their division, but in the conference. And the Lions were thought to have this locked up really early in the season. They looked unstoppable, but Minnesota just kept pace throughout the entire season, and they've put together a really good record, and now they're in a position where they can actually take first place in the not only division but in the conference and get that first round bye. So it's going to be a game with huge implications and should be a fun one to watch. And let's get into this. Let's get into this breakdown here. So the important thing to note with a potential shootout situation is that we're going to want to figure out a way to get as many studs as possible into our lineups. And one way to do that is to look for a potential cheap guy that we could use in the captain spot, and that'll save us some salaries. And I believe I have a guy that can get us there, and I'll get into that a little bit into this build here. But let's take a look at some guys. Jahmyr Gibbs has just been a stud every time that he's played Minnesota. I'm just going to go over real quick and show you guys some of the scores that we've seen since Jared Goff has been the quarterback over in Detroit. Scores versus Minnesota earlier this year, 31-29. We had a 30-20 score, a 30-24, 34-23, 24-28, 29-27, 38-31. So you can kind of see where the thinking is happening, where this is going to be a potential shootout here. Let's take a look at the injury situation. We're looking at the Minnesota team first. Looking at Christian Darrisaw is still on IR on their offensive line. As far as their defense, though, I think the most significant injury is going to be Pat Jones. He's one of their best pass rushers. That's going to be good for Jared Goff and add to the potential shootout situation. And just looking at some other guys on IR. So Pat Jones is the most significant one, with him being out in this one. If we look over at the Detroit Lions, are getting healthier. Anzalone was just taken off of IR, and that's not good for Hawkinson. They've been a little bit sluggish against the tight end position. Since Anceloni was on IR, but he has just been activated. I think it's likely that he plays tonight, so that's not going to be a good matchup for Hawkinson in this one. We're still looking at a lot of injuries. Manuel Mosley is out. Ennis Rakestraw is out. We're looking at Carlton Davis is out. He's got a broken jaw. Hopefully, he'll be back by the playoffs. Aiden Hutchinson obviously still on IR, and several other defenders still on IR. They still got their, for the most part, their run defense intact, which is going to be good against the Vikings and help lend itself to the shootout potential. Craig Reynolds is questionable. They're already missing David Montgomery. Khalif Raymond might be back. He's missed a few games, so we'll see if he gets back. Sorry, just checking my alerts here. And yeah, like I said, Anceloni is going to be significant if he comes back. And on the offense, David Montgomery is the biggest guy who's still out. So mostly intact as far as the offense, and Minnesota, mostly intact overall. Pat Jones being significant on the defense, and then Detroit having several significant injuries on their defense on top of it. So when the defenses are banged up, that's good for the offenses. And these are two high-powered offenses. Just went over those scores. And it's going to be a situation where we probably want to get as many studs in as possible. Justin Jefferson has dominated Detroit. He's had, let's see here. Justin Jefferson has had 140 plus yards in 4 out of 6 games versus Detroit, or 4 out of the most recent 6 games versus Detroit. Jordan Addison has not done as well against Detroit. We'll get into that in a minute. Gibbs has had 80 plus yards and 2 touchdowns in 2 out of 3 games versus Detroit. So just these guys are all just like set up for these monster games. Justin Jefferson, like I said, he's been dominating Detroit. He's been pretty good this year too, but he hasn't quite been what he's been in the past. But it looks like he picked it up a little bit towards the end. He had a couple 30 plus point weeks. Justin Jefferson, obviously a threat to break any slate. Amon-Ra St. Brown has dominated the Vikings on the other side. He has 4 straight 100+ yard games versus Minnesota. So he just shows up in all these games versus Minnesota. Jared Goff, another guy who's done well in this matchup. Jared Goff has been doing well recently on top of it. Look at all those points he's been scoring since David Montgomery went out. Jared Goff has had against Minnesota, he's had 5 280 plus passing games against Minnesota. So he has had a history of success against them as well. Sam Darnold, he's new to this matchup, but he had a pretty good week against them the first time that they played this season. He ended up with 259 yards and a touchdown, 17 DraftKings points. But this is a primetime game. You can expect them to kind of show up a little bit more in this one with Detroit's defense banged up on top of it. So Detroit has done really well in primetime. I believe they've won their past 5 games in a row. And ever since Dan Campbell has been the coach, I believe they've only lost 2 games in primetime versus the Vikings. They had they were a little bit worse in primetime. They had trouble winning games with Kirk Cousins as the quarterback in primetime, and I think that they haven't done very well this season either. So a little bit of struggles for Minnesota in primetime, whereas Detroit kind of uses it to shine. Aaron Jones is facing a tough Detroit run defense. I talked about that at the top. They're not allowing a lot of points. The last game that he played against Detroit, 20.6 DraftKings points. So that was against a healthy Detroit defense. So that's something to keep in mind with Aaron Jones. Jameson Williams has not had a ton of success in this matchup, but he's only had a few games against Minnesota. Last game was one reception for -4 yards, so not very in play there. But Jameson Williams has the better matchup. The target percentage against wideouts is 40.45 against Minnesota's defense, thanks to fantasy points for that stat. And they are also scoring 24.3 DraftKings points a game over the past 4 games against that defense. So that's what wideouts have done against Minnesota recently. As far as the slots, they've been allowing 34.46% of the targets to slot receivers. So that is good for Amon-Ra. That means that it's like a top 10 targeted versus slot receivers defense. On the other side, Minnesota has been targeted. Detroit has been targeted 36.69% of the time against the slot receiver. So Detroit has been terrible against slot receivers all season. We'll get into that in a second. Jordan Addison is, he hasn't done as well in this matchup. He's struggled a little bit in this matchup. You see like 9.6 the last time they faced off, but Jordan Addison could do well at any time. And if Carlton Davis is out, that's only going to help his matchup. We got the scrubby backup quarterbacks. Laporta's another guy who's struggled in this matchup. Minnesota is giving up only 11.3. Both these teams are very good against the tight end. Minnesota's only giving up 11.3 DraftKings points, while Detroit is only giving up 8.3 DraftKings points. So the tight ends are not in the best situations tonight. The kickers, I think kickers will be in play for sure. But Bates, like Dan Campbell, going for it on 4 every time he gets in position. It doesn't leave Bates with very many opportunities to score, but he's still putting up double-digit points in the majority of the games this season. I think in a night like tonight, they're going to be going for it on 4. It's not going to be a good scene for Bates, but he can still put up double-digit points. Meanwhile, Ricard has 3 straight with double-digit points. He's had a bunch of weeks with double-digit points. I would trust Ricard to have more opportunities than Bates in this game. So if I had to lean on a kicker, I'd probably lean Ricard over Bates. Jalen Nailor is going to be interesting. That stat I was telling you about, Detroit, 36% of the targets against Detroit come from the slot, and that is going to set up Nailor for a nice game. If we look at Nailor, you can see he had 5 targets last week for 81 yards and a touchdown, 19 DraftKings points. Last game against Detroit, he had 11 DraftKings points. Nailor's been coming alive a little bit here. 5 targets, 2 targets, 2 targets last few games. Runs a majority of his routes from the slot. That's where we like to target Detroit. He's running 47% of his routes from that slot position. Justin Jefferson, 28%, and Jordan Addison, 33%. So that's going to be a good matchup for Jalen Nailor tonight. And I have him in my underdog short as my heat seeker for the night. And for underdog, that's more of trying to find a long shot to potentially score a touchdown. But, Jalen Nailor, I do like him in Showdown as well. You want to check out my underdog short over on YouTube. Use the promo code SEEK, SEEK, when you sign up for an underdog account. They're going to match you 50% up to $1,000. You don't see very many promos like that anymore, so make sure to take advantage of that. The defenses, I'm probably writing off the defenses in this one. Tim Patrick is in play. It's a shootout. Any one of these guys could score a random touchdown. Last game versus Minnesota, he only had 4 DraftKings points, but he was still kind of finding his way on this offense. 2 out of the last 4 weeks, you can see he had double-digit DraftKings points, so Tim Patrick will be in play. And then beyond that, I'm not really into these backup running backs against 2 tough run defenses. If I was going anywhere down here, maybe it'd be like Oliver, but like I said, like they have a pretty good run defense too. So it's very difficult to scrub dive in this one. Khalif Raymond is $300. Khalif Raymond would be the play if you need to go cheap in this one at $300. That's ridiculously cheap for Khalif Raymond, but you want to keep a eye on it, see if he's activated tonight. He was activated from injured reserve on Saturday, and he was a full participant in practice this week. So it's highly probable that he's going to play tonight, but keep an eye out on the injury report. Look for inactives. If Raymond is playing, then he is going to be in play in this one. Let me just double check something real quick. All right. Yeah, so Khalif Raymond is definitely going to be in play tonight. So let's go into a build here, and I think the popular option is going to be probably Gibbs in the captain. Make sure to hit that like button, give me the 30 likes so I can put out my favorite picks in the comment section later on, and make sure to subscribe to the channel. I'm looking for 1,600 subscribers, so I definitely appreciate you guys helping me get there. I'm just checking the score on this Tampa Bay Bucks game that I recommended. And the Bucks just scored a touchdown. Thank you, Bucky Irving, for saving all my playoff best ball teams, because I have a ton of exposure to the Bucks, and it was getting a little bit shaky there against the Saints in this game. So happy to see the Bucks. I believe they pulled it out in this one. 1 second, I'm just going to check and see what Evans did. I had him going over, higher than 6.5 receptions in my underdog video. It looks like he got 8, so that's good. All right, so back to the game. Justin Jefferson, he's going to be in play. Amon-Ra St. Brown. People are going to try to jam in these studs, but it's going to be tough because look where that leaves us with our salary. We're at 3,500, so we need to already go down here to the cheaper range. Jalen Naylor, like I was talking about, has that decent matchup. And then we got 2 more options we got to find at 3K. Let's put Khalif Raymond in there. He's going to be an instant salary relief for us at that 300, I believe, 200 price point. Let's get him in there. And that leaves us with 6K. 6K is going to put us in that Laporta, Hawkinson range. You can put the kickers in there too. So not a bad range to be there. That's a good way to put together a Gibbs lineup. You notice we don't have any quarterbacks in there. That's because I think there's going to be a ton of PPR points scored in this one. And that's why I have like Jefferson, Amon-Ra. I think those guys outscore the quarterbacks. I think Gibbs is going to outscore the quarterback, and then it doesn't leave us with much salary to try to get those guys in. So let's clear that out. Let's do a different direction here. So we know it's going to be a shootout, and we want to get as many studs in as possible, and we want to be different with our lineup constructions. One way to do that is to look in this cheap range for a potential captain option. And the guy that I like the most is going to be Jalen Naylor. I mentioned the weakness against the slot receivers by Detroit's defense. Addison has struggled a little bit against Detroit on top of that. So maybe Naylor is the guy who kind of steps up here. And I like putting Naylor in that captain option. Helps us get Gibbs, Jefferson, Brown all in there. Let's get a couple more guys. We have 4,900 left. If we wanted to, we could even let's get Ricard in there. Go leave us with 5K. We could put Bates in there. We could put in one of these defenses. We could get Tim Patrick in there to get kind of the secondary receiver on the other side of this matchup. So Naylor opens up a lot, as you can see, with what we can potentially do here. If you wanted to, instead of Ricard, if you wanted to go with, let's say, Hawkinson, that's going to leave us with 4,400. Leaves us again with Tim Patrick, Vikings and Lions defense, Cam Akers, Ty Chandler, these backup running backs. I believe that Akers has been the primary backup lately. Let's check over on our snap shares. All right, so looking at Minnesota here, Cam Akers, 23% snap share last week versus Ty Chandler had a 7%. So it looks like he has taken over as the backup. So keep that in mind with Cam Akers and Ty Chandler when you're making those decisions. But that leads us in a pretty good direction there if we wanted to do that. If you wanted to, maybe let's maybe take out St. Brown. Let's put Goff in there. That's going to leave us with 5,400. What if we want to put in Williams to give a receiver on the Detroit side? That's going to leave us with 3,200. That puts us in Ty Chandler, Jefferson, the backup in Detroit, Oliver. Oliver would probably be the guy that I'd lean towards if I was in this situation, and a bunch of backups, or Khalif Raymond. Khalif Raymond might be the guy who's going to get the most opportunity out of all these guys, even though he is. If we went with Khalif Raymond, we could take out Williams and get Amon-Ra in there. Like that'd be, like the Amon-Ra spot. So a couple different ways that we can go. Make sure to hit that like button. Give me the 30 likes so we can put out like the favorite picks later on. Check out my underdog video. I've got some of my favorite plays on this slate in there. And make sure to subscribe to the channel. Help me get to 1,600. Let's end this one with a bang. We'll be doing plenty of playoff best ball lineups on top of it. Again, I forget to switch over to this damn thing. This is how I had the Naylor lineup set up. Naylor, Gibbs, Jefferson, Goff, and Raymond. If you didn't want to go in that direction, you could go with, swap him out, go with Amon-Ra, go down to Ricard, and that leaves you with 5K. So you have options like Bates. You can go double kicker, Patrick, Akers, and guys like that. So that's a little look at the Naylor lineups, but I do like his matchup against Detroit tonight. I think that he could exceed expectations, and he will be very low owned in the captain spot and gives us an opportunity to get some of our studs into our lineups. So I will put comments in the comment section, my picks in the comment section. Give me the 30 likes so I can do that, and subscribe to the channel. Give me the 1,600 subscribes. You want to subscribe anyways to get alerts for when these videos come out. And check out my underdog. Use the promo code SEEK, SEEK, to get a 50% deposit match up to $1,000. And I'll see you guys for the playoffs.